Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium in East Investing, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, Crossing New Frontiers to Conquer Today's Challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, New St. Augustine.
10 binary million commodity off-the-shelf processors was like walking alone through a dark rainforest and doing so alone with only a dim lamp. That lack of experimental confirmation was the reason the technology of massively parallel processing was called the grand challenge of supercomputing. In the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, massively parallel processing across 2 to the power 16 processors was mocked as a beautiful theory from the 16th dimension. No experiment had successfully confirmed that massively parallel processing across an ensemble of 65,536 processors will work and, importantly, be harnessed to solve the toughest problems in extreme scale computational physics. And more importantly, to experimentally confirm the theory of massively parallel processing and confirm it not on an embarrassingly parallel problem, but confirm it on a grand challenge problem, such as the extreme scale general circulation model used to foresee otherwise unforeseeable global warming. Until 1989, no supercomputer experiment had successfully confirmed that massively parallel processing supercomputers would have rich and fertile consequences. On the 4th of July of 1989, I experimentally confirmed massively parallel processing supercomputing for petroleum reservoir simulation. That experimental discovery inspired the petroleum industry to purchase 1 in 10 supercomputers. That experimental discovery confirmed that the modern supercomputer that is powered by massively parallel processing technology can be used to discover and recover otherwise undiscoverable and unrecoverable oil and gas. At its core essence, my experimental discovery of what makes computers faster is the story of 2 to the power 16 emails traveling through 16 dimensions along 16 mutually orthogonal directions. Each of those 2 to the power 16 emails was in search of any of 2 to the power 16 or 64 binary thousand processors or computers. As the lone wolf massively parallel supercomputer programmer that was at the farthest frontier of high-performance computing, I could only command and control my processors by email, and I could only email them across the 16 times 2 to the power 16 or 1 binary million bidirectional email wires. I visualized and theorized those email wires as marrying my 2 to the power 16 or 64 binary thousand processors and marrying them together as one cohesive unit. My research in parallel processing was my attempt to discover that the impossible is in fact possible. My confidence to do the impossible came from my knowledge that it's only impossible for a supercomputer scientist with only 8 years of training in only mathematics, or only 8 years of training in only physics, or only 8 years of training in only computer science. It's impossible to use your knowledge of only one discipline, such as riding a bicycle across a courtyard, and use that limited knowledge to solve a multidisciplinary problem, such as flying an airplane and flying it across the Atlantic Ocean. Similarly, It's impossible to use your limited knowledge of only one discipline, such as programming only one processor, and use that limited knowledge to solve a multidisciplinary problem that traverses the frontier of the most advanced calculus, and that traverses the frontier of the most large-scale algebra, and that traverses the frontier of the most computation-intensive floating-point arithmetical operations, and that traverses the frontier of extreme-scale computational fluid dynamics, and that traverses the frontier of the supercomputer hopeful that I hoped in the 1970s will be powered by the as yet to be invented massively parallel processing supercomputer that I visualized as a small internet that is a global network of 65,536 commodity processors. What's impossible for a supercomputer scientist with only 8 years of training may be possible for a polymath such as a supercomputer scientist with 16 years of training. I had 16 years of multidisciplinary training in physics and mathematics. I also had 16 years of supercomputing experience under my belt. That was the reason I, Philip Emeagwali, was the only full-time programmer of the 1980s of the most massively parallel processing machine ever built. The likes of Albert Einstein that were trained for only 8 years in only theoretical physics or only experimental physics lack the mastery of extreme-scale computational physics that is the barrier to entry into the terra incognita of supercomputing. The likes of Albert Einstein lack the command of the partial differential equations of modern calculus that is at the mathematical core of extreme-scale computational physics. The likes of Albert Einstein cannot control the 65,536 processors that define and outline the internet that I used to experimentally discover how to solve the toughest problems in extreme-scale computational physics.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.